Okay, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Welcome everyone to this session. Can you guys see the screen?
Yeah.
Okay. So I guess the topic for today that we would like to focus on is around the metrics that the parents can use to truly select the right Islamic school for their children. But before we get started, let's step back ourselves and think about why this is an important topic, and what is the significance of it. There are a couple of reasons that come to mind when you think about selecting the right school. First of all, until and unless the parents really understand what is the outcome for their children, and they take full responsibility of how they would like to raise their children, the school cannot really provide the support that you're looking for, number one. So the reason for putting this together is to kind of um, remind all of ourselves as parents that we need to first pay attention to what our role is before we look for the role in the school. If we don't know what we are looking for, then we cannot even ask the right questions to the school or ask for the right data from the school itself. So that's primarily the number one reason. The second reason that this is very important for all of us is because we keep talking about and we keep hearing in Islam the importance of ihsan and excellence. However, when we think about the output that we are producing for our next generation from our various schools, is it truly reflecting that the Muslims are doing an ihsan in the field of education or nurturing the leaders for the next generation? And if the answer is not yes, then we need to think about how do we do that. And one of the most important thing is that for any school, the biggest stakeholder is the parents, because obviously they are not only sending their children, but especially in case of the private schools and Islamic schools in the West, they are supporting financially through the tuition of the school. So if the stakeholders do not know what they're looking for, it is almost impossible that the institute will deliver the results that would truly benefit the Ummah. So I think to kind of summarize, this is very important topic, because I can give you a very simple example. I was actually picking up one of my very good friends, and I was going through, we were just traveling, and I just randomly asked him the question, how do you know that your school where you're sending your kid, and his kid is also going to an Islamic school, that it is one of the best schools, or it is the school that is actually fulfilling what you are really expecting your child to become? And to my surprise, a lot of people don't even know what to look for and what to ask for. They truly just rely on whatever report card that the school gives to them. So one of the main goal of this presentation is to really start educating our parents. And really, this will not give you all the answers. Obviously, this, when I think about 12 metrics, it seemed like too much. So towards the end, I'll try to summarize maybe top two, three items that are the most critical ones. However, it is very important for us that we know what we are looking for. And this is not just for our own children, but this is more important because this is our collective responsibility as an ummah. Because if not all of us are asking the right questions, then we cannot raise the standard of our institutes, who are truly responsible and who are doing an amazing job of nurturing our next generation. So with that in mind, let's get started. When we think about, what are the different criterias, we try to categorize them in three areas: identity formation, the influence, and the role models. So, these are the three high-level domains that we can focus on. And the first question, again, before going into the details, the first question we should always ask ourselves, are the children who are graduating from our Islamic schools, how confident they feel about being a Muslim in their own identity? Do they try to adapt to different cultures as they move forward in their life, whether they go to universities, colleges, jobs, careers, own their own businesses? Do they feel proud of being a Muslim themselves, or do they try to fit in? The second one is the peer influence. Obviously, when we always say that it takes a village to raise a child, because there are three components of raising a children, right? When you're raising a child, parent is the most important, or the house or the environment at your home is the number one, uh, I would say number one or the most important pillar. The second one is the teachers, and the third one is the environment or the community, which includes your school environment, your community environment, maybe the friends and the family circle that you have. Those are all three critical areas, and that is where it's very important that what kind of an influence your child is getting on a day-to-day basis. And the last one, which is most important, is like one of the things that if you look at the research, one of the key challenges that we are facing at this moment is the lack of role models. A lot of times, especially even in Islamic school, we try to teach them, what's an ideal person may look like, what characteristics, what attributes. However, they are seeing a dissonance, emotional dissonance on a daily basis because they hear something else, they read something else, but they're observing a totally different behavior around them. And the most important behavior is of the teachers themselves. Because especially if you look at from a psychological perspective, when the child is growing up, especially when they're younger, the first role model they look up to is the parents. And in most of the scenarios, the second role model that they look up to is the teachers. So I think those are the two definitely parents and the teachers have to really play that role. And that is why it's a very, I would say it's a very important but challenging responsibility that all of us have to embrace. So again, so these are the three domains. Let's move forward. What are some of the common pitfalls or the parents when they think about, it's very normal, especially in these days, people to think about reputation over reality, word of mouth, or, that you have heard some school is very, very good. But that cannot be just the only reason for you to select that school. Um, Again, when you think about Islamic school, especially in the West, one of the main focus of the parents, the reason they send their kids to an Islamic school is to really provide them with the right environment for their children as they're growing up. However, it's very important to see that focusing on one or the other is actually it's not a good balance. Meaning, you cannot just focus on the academics and you cannot just focus on the religious instruction or the environment. It has to be a balance of both. And that's a very important thing because I've seen personally and I've experienced that a lot of parents, they are willing to compromise on, let's say, extracurricular activities or academics because their kids are getting the Islamic environment, or the other way around, where they feel like, what, yes, my kid is getting the Islamic environment, but the academics are not good. Um, or when their academics are good, they're kind of not getting what they sent their kid for to develop their own Muslim identity. The third point is, I'm sure this is true not just for the school, but for all of us in our daily lives, that Islam should not be just like something that just appears, but it's really rooted in the right character and the day-to-day interactions. Um, and again, not asking the right question about the vision, the values, and more importantly, if you really summarize that, is the what's the philosophy of the school? What are they truly trying to do, and what are they trying to accomplish? These are some of the four things to really pay attention to as you're thinking about as a parent. Again, this is another format. If you think a little bit more deeper, like in identity, you're looking for the Islamic vision and philosophy, the quality of Islamic curriculum, the tarbiyah practices, the role models and teachers. Because again, at the end of the day, when you think about Islamic environment, what you're really, really looking for is uh, can our children or are our children able to develop the right attributes of a true Muslim? From an academic quality perspective, obviously, you're looking for various academic rigor and standards, the quality of teaching or pedagogy itself, and the support system that the students receive, the structure of the school and the culture that exists. And, from as a Muslim, we would like our Islamic institutes to be long term and they should have the right level of leadership and sustainability. So let's maybe go a little bit deep down into the first domain, which is Islamic identity and tarbiyah. Um, so the first one, as you can see, the vision is, or the philosophy of the school is the first thing. I'm not really sure many parents, when they go to Islamic school and when they're looking for an admission to their children, how many of them truly look for the vision and the philosophy of the school? And in my opinion, that's a very important point. Just because their name has the Islamic doesn't mean that they will have the right environment or they will be developing the right character. So making sure that as you're talking to to the leadership of the school, whether it's a principal, head of the school, or their directors or the staff members. Um, this is an important question to really understand, what is that they're really trying to accomplish, what's their philosophy, why they exist as a school. And part of, some of the red flags could be like when they give you vague religious language. Oh, we teach a lot of Quran, we memorize Quran, we have a lot of ahadith. Again, random answers, but not really clear about what are they really trying to accomplish. And I think this is one of the biggest gaps that I have personally observed in interacting with a lot of families, that they're not really clear about, what is the output or what is the outcome of that school. Because now imagine, especially if you're sending your child to a pre-K or a K to 12 or even K to 8, they are going to spend 8 to 12 or 13 years in that school. So if you do not really know what is the output of that investment of those 10, 12 years or 13 years, then it is probably not the right thing to do. And a lot of times people have regrets later on in their lives when they have not done their due diligence. So hopefully, inshallah, that we will be able to avoid that mistake. So the first question really is to understand the philosophy of the school. The second one is when you think about Islamic curriculum or Islamic education or Islamic environment, there are a lot of important aspect of it. And the most important thing, in my opinion, personally, at the end of the day, is the development of their character or their akhlaq, right? Because if they have understood the Islamic concepts correctly, whether they have, and again, part of that is, have they developed the love of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Do they understand the Creator? Have they developed the love of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam? Do they love the Sira? Do they understand the Sira? Have they been exposed to the Islamic history about how did our, we as a community or as an ummah has gone through ups and downs, and it's important for them to really understand what were the things that worked in the past and what were the things that we had challenges around, right? But again, I think a lot of times what happens if you see some of the Islamic schools, they may give you some like, okay, we'll help them memorize Quran. Fantastic, which is a good thing. However, the first question we need to ask is, do they understand what they're reading? Because if our children do not understand what they're reading, we are indirectly saying that we would like to develop followers, which means that they just memorize and they don't really think. And that is definitely not going to help us develop the right level of the Muslim leadership that we want to develop as a next generation. So I guess if I have to summarize from an Islamic studies or Islamic curriculum perspective, understand that, your children or our children really understand the message of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, so they can understand the Quran, they can understand the ahadith, they really understand and have a knowledge of Sira, and most importantly, one of the most critical, and they're doing that through critical thinking, through creative thinking, through feeling very safe in asking questions and understanding the concepts and the why behind it. And the last thing is that, at the end of the day, this becomes their DNA, which means that it is truly reflected in their character. So, this is a very important aspect. Don't just go by like, my kid can have memorized certain ayat. That is important. I'm not undermining that. However, if they do not understand and they have not really, I would say, internalized the concepts through understanding, through asking questions, then it is very hard for them to develop a character that would reflect those outcomes. The third aspect is, again, which we were talking about, this is the emotional or psychological dissonance, which is when they read something or they've been taught something, but then they do not see it in the action around them. So I think this is a very important aspect, that, when we talk about, the importance of, let's say, connecting with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and Salah is definitely one of the greatest mechanism to develop that love and the connection with our Creator. So again, how is that in the school, the mannerism around it? Conflict resolution has nothing to do with just Islam, but in general, as what kind of a behavior is being taught, and they develop how to manage that, and their daily interactions. So again, your goal is not to just look at the curriculum, that what is being taught in the class, but how they are living their day-to-day life around themselves. And are the actions in alignment with what our values and principles are and what we are trying to really, I would say, impart to our children. One of the most important role, like I said earlier, that after the parents, the most important role is played by the teacher, especially in the younger years. It's definitely relevant in later year as well, but it's very important at when the kids are small or young. And again, I think it is such an important piece that we need to pay so much attention. So I think if one of the questions that everybody should know about is for sure determining the quality of the teachers who are going to teach and interact with our kids on a day-to-day basis. They need to have, they need to model the Islamic behavior, they need to have emotional maturity, and their conduct. Again, we don't want to like really evaluate. None of us has the ability and should be trying to evaluate people's, their religiosity or their level of Islam. But in general, your interaction with them and the behaviors that they exhibit on a day-to-day basis has to definitely reflect the true character that we would like our children to really emulate and develop in themselves. Again, I think a very important truth is school with an average curriculum but exceptional teachers will outperform a school with an excellent curriculum and mediocre teachers. I think this has been proven over research and with a lot of data and experiences across multiple or institutes, not just Islamic schools, but any other school. So I think the quality of the teacher is such an important ingredient. And that is something that we all need to pay a lot of attention to. And I guess this is specifically very, very important in Islamic schools because if the parents are asking that questions, hopefully that would truly elevate the quality of the teachers in our institutes. So this is a very critical piece. So I believe that if this is not a lot of these things are not just important for us as a parent, but also as a community member, because if our community is asking these questions, inshallah, we should be able to raise the overall standard and deliver the ihsan that we would like to, as we are always referring to, inshallah. So now let's switch gears a bit and think about academic quality, because obviously at the end of the day, we are looking for it. And again, one of the things that we're saying is excellence is part of our deen. When we think about ihsan and the academic quality, the first question I would like to ask myself, or I would like to ask if anybody of you can actually unmute if you know this, otherwise we'll move forward, is how many of Islamic schools, when you think about, let's say, top institutes in the world, whether even it's at a school level or university level, how many Islamic institutes name come to your mind? Um, Personally, I have not heard a lot many, especially from K to 12 level. So anybody has any answer, that would be great if you guys have heard some of the like outstanding Islamic institutes.
Yeah, none. I have not heard any.
Right. I mean, how many of us heard about, let's say, when we think about universities, anybody is aware of like, especially I'm talking about US, like Stratford, Challenger, IB schools. When we think about universities, MIT, Stanford, Berkeley, bunch of other institutes, right? But a lot of them are like, again, if we are doing the ihsan, then a lot of us, a lot of these Islamic institutes should be listed as one of those. I don't know, Brother Waris, if you were trying to say something.
Actually, I have nothing about the US and UK. But if you're talking about Pakistan, so I'm just aware one of them with the name of Khudi. So
Udi.
I'm not
Okay.
really aware. Yeah,
Okay.
recently I'm just trying to access someone uh,
Okay.
who can provide us a homeschooling.
Okay, that's
So
very good. Alhamdulillah. Alhamdulillah. And I think one of the things that, again, you're looking for the standards, but, obviously, you look for the achievement data. And I know that college readiness is something that is really on top of mind for a lot of parents, which is fine. However, I think it's also equally important, especially with what is happening in the industry today, is that the what skills will be required are evolving and changing, and it's very important that we pay attention to that. Because I can, at least based on where I'm sitting in the Silicon Valley, I can tell you that the workforce and the career development paths are going to truly evolve. And it is very important that, in my opinion, this is one of the most important urgency at this time for us to evolve our academic quality in a way that we are truly developing the right competencies and skill set in our children, along with obviously the character development, which is the main focus. Again, with the teaching pedagogy is an important factor. Again, sometimes we may not be able to directly evaluate teachers, but their teaching pedagogy or their methodology or is going to reflect a lot. Like, in their classes, is it, critical thinking versus how they are engaging in the class, and various learning styles. So there is a lot of research on it, but I think at the end of the day, as a parent, what is my criteria? Very simple. If you look at children when they start going in kindergarten or first grade at the very early stage, they're very happy because it's in our fitra, that we are curious and we want to learn. But as the children start going to the school, if their excitement of learning and going to school starts reducing, that itself is a red flag. What it tells us is that the natural ability or the fitra is being really subdued or curbed into that environment. So I think one of the most important criteria, if you look at it as a stakeholder, is my child happy and is excited going to school? Are they excited about learning things? If those things are not happening, then definitely, I'm not saying that this is going to happen everywhere, but that is the goal that we are looking for. And that's, in my opinion, in my personal humble opinion, is the excellence and the ihsan we are looking at. Again, these days, especially, supporting the whole child. Again, Islam also believes in this balance personality. It's not just either physical or, intellectual, but it is all the five domains, that you have to develop, whether it's emotional learning, whether it's, learning accommodations, behavior interventions, and academic interventions. So I think there is a lot of support that a school is supposed to provide, and again, if the school does not have that capabilities, then you really have to evaluate that is that the right place for the child you're trying to put into that school. But I think very important, the holistic child development is intellectual, emotional, social, spiritual, and physical. So I think all of these are very important aspects of human development. So we have to pay attention that is that a balanced place? Are all of these needs for our children are being met? Some critical questions could be, how do you support students who struggle academically? What resources exist? And how do you accommodate different learning styles? Now, school culture and people, again, at the end of the day, it's about the culture of the school, and this is where the most important character development happens. If it's fear-based in the name of discipline, then definitely that is not going to help our children, because again, it will kill their curiosity if they don't feel safe, if they feel shy, or they feel that they are not free to ask questions and express their answers because they may not be good answers or they may be laughed at. I think those kinds of environments will truly kill the creativity of our children. So we should definitely notice, are the interactions respectful? Are the student voices and their concerns and their questions are being welcomed, not just heard? And if there are some mistakes, then how are they being addressed? One of the very key important thing, and again, I think this is very important, especially in our Islamic schools, is the partnership with the parents, because the parents need to be truly involved. And I think this is a two-way traffic in a sense that I've seen a lot of schools. They try to have that interaction, but parents obviously seem to be very busy because of their commitments. However, it is very important for all of us as parents to truly understand that, again, the primary responsibility of raising a child is of a parent, not of the school. And we have to play our part. That's such a critical piece. And having that regular interaction is very, very important. Um, and I think that's why it's important to ask the question, what kind of a parent partnership looks like at the school? And how do you handle situations where, let's say, parents and the school disagree? And sometimes those disagreements could not be just bigger things. It could be about the philosophy of how you want to raise your child. So understanding all of these things is an important part. Uh, do the children feel that they belong? I think I was talking to, as a matter of fact, I think in my personal interaction with a lot of even imams and the scholars and the teachers, and especially the counselors, where the children go for counseling, I've heard this over and over again. A lot of our children today, especially in the West, um, they feel lonely. They don't feel that they have the right, social circle or a support circle around them. So I think it's a very important factor that as these children are going to these Islamic schools, one of the biggest reason and one of the biggest support they need to provide is providing that environment where they feel involved, they feel that they're belonging, and they have a support um, circle around them. So I think this is a very important key aspect, because I can tell you that in reality, this is one of the very realistic challenge that our children, and I would say our youth or our next generation, is facing. The next domain is about leadership and governance. Again, this is something, you know, obviously you look at, their board, you look at head of the school or the principal, the stability. Um, do they have a lot of leadership turnover? If they do, then that's definitely going to create a little bit of challenge, because if the leadership is not stable, then obviously the staff, the teachers, the culture, everything become has an gets impacted. So um, and the most important thing, again, the longevity and viability of the institutes. It's important because, again, at the end of the day, our goal is that our Islamic institutes are developed well, they are adding the right level of value, and then they are sustainable and they will last, inshallah, way past our lives. And that's the goal. And for that to happen, they need to have a good financial health, right? The safety and security and enrollment. So I think this is an amana on all of us. And um, as you're looking at the schools, not just be looking at it, asking the question, but also see how you can help make sure that um, they are long-term sustainable, and inshallah you can provide your support there. So I think if you look at this, at the end of the day, there is no perfect school. You look at all these various domains, but more importantly, try to look at what's your child's specific needs, because every child is unique and different, and they may have different learning needs. They may have different development, pathway. So you really have to look at, is the school is that you're picking up, is that the right match? Again, 12 metrics might seem a little too much, but in general, when you think about it, is if you have to truly summarize, it's the philosophy of the school. Are they truly focused on developing the true character? Um, from an academic perspective, are they up to speed? So their teachers are not only qualified, but they actually are acting as role models and they're using a good pedagogy. And the last one is that from an academics perspective or extracurricular perspective, do they do holistic development, and do they focus on the things that truly matter, from even an academic domain perspective? Um, so, but again, the last part that we want to re-emphasize, your role as a parent is definitely not replaceable. Because at the end of the day, the Right Islamic School is the only one that truly partners with you to raise a confident practicing Muslim, and embodying the principles of Islam in every facet of their growth. But it cannot happen without the right involvement of the parents, and parents doing their part while they're expecting the ihsan from the school and the community as well, inshallah.